My name's Malcolm, and I'm a research engineer at DeepMind.
Hi, my name's Tamara, and I'm a software engineer at DeepMind.
So we're here today to talk about Sonnet and hopefully answer some questions for you. So what is Sonnet? Why DeepMind has found it useful, and why it might be useful to you, and then talk a bit about our plans for the future of the library. So Sonnet is DeepMind's library for constructing neural networks in TensorFlow. We've been working on it since 2016, and it's been open source for the last couple of years. And you can try the TensorFlow 1.0 version with this command line here. But you might be thinking, sounds interesting. Why does this exist? And that is a very legitimate question. So to answer that, we have to take a little trip down memory lane. So 2014, TensorFlow is in development at Brain, but there's no open source release yet. And unrelatedly, I guess, DeepMind is acquired by Google. So a little bit of code archaeology here. So does anybody recognize what system this is written in? Hands up if it looks vaguely familiar. Okay, not too many hands. So I censored some of this just to make it slightly harder. So now it may be clearer that this is actually Torch 7 code, or Lua Torch. And specifically, we're defining a module here. That's what the red arrow is pointing to. So DeepMind was an entirely Torch 7 operation, at least in the research side when I joined. And it's a really great piece of software if you're interested in the sort of history of deep learning abstractions. The abstractions in Torch really go back to stuff from the 90s like Lush. So fast forward a few years, we have like dozens of research projects going on, hundreds of people involved, and being able to kind of quickly share code between the projects was like really critical. So somebody comes up with a new RNN, everyone else can try that out with like minimal fuss and like no changing of the code. And we thought we had a pretty good workflow and we're pretty happy with it. And then we decided to just get rid of it all and start from scratch. Seems questionable. But the reason is we were transitioning to TensorFlow. Obviously there's many great reasons to use TensorFlow. We've been hearing about them for the last 2 days. Top of the list for us was better alignment and collaboration with our colleagues at Google. It was designed for distributed training from day one, which Torch really wasn't, and that was becoming a problem in some of our research. And we wanted to really take the best advantage of TPUs, and obviously, TensorFlow is the best way to use them. And we knew from initial assessments this was going to be flexible enough to build whatever we need on top of. But we weren't actually starting from scratch. We had some stuff we really wanted to preserve. And it's not that we want the same APIs as Lua Torch. That would not have been the right decision. But we wanted the same engineering philosophy. So what we mean by this is, hopefully we're going to elucidate through this talk. So first of all, kind of composable modules using object-oriented programming. Now, it's definitely totally valid to have a kind of purely functional library. But we found that when you start having lots of variable reuse, RNNs, those kind of features, objects really made a lot more sense. So we definitely wanted to keep that. We wanted to decouple the model definition from how it's actually trained. And this is really key, and I will come onto this again shortly. Hackability is really crucial. We don't think we can anticipate everything our research scientists might want, years or even months ahead of time. But what we can do is have code that they are able to dig down, hopefully not too far, make the changes they need to, maybe by forking the module, and we're kind of comfortable with that, and then continue with their research. And it's important to emphasize we're really optimizing for research. You've heard about a lot of great solutions for kind of moving things into production, and that's really important, but for DeepMind research, that really happens very rarely. So we prefer to optimize the libraries based on research progress, next paper, that kind of thing. And overall, we're looking for a standard interface with really minimal assumptions that doesn't prevent you from doing anything. So, composability, what do I mean by this? Hopefully, anyone who's used an LSTM would be yes, you can implement this out of some linear modules, and they contain the variables, and the LSTM is a thing around all of that. But you can go many levels up from there. So the differentiable neural computer, which was the first project I worked on at DeepMind, that's a module that contains an LSTM plus some other stuff. And we worked on that and got the paper out, and then the code is sitting there, and then another team can come along and be like, hey, we have some system which requires an RNN. It's currently an LSTM, but maybe we'll just try this instead. And it's been used in many places, but I think the most significant maybe was the capture the flag work, which had some really cool results specifically with the DNC controller. And they could reuse the code. They didn't need to ask us about how it worked. They didn't even need to read the code. They're just this is an RNN that conforms to some API. We'll just drop it in, and it works. Orthogonality to the training setup that I mentioned. So I did a quick survey. We have roughly 2 setups for unsupervised learning, 4 for reinforcement learning, and many more setups for single projects. And to be clear what I mean here, this is kind of everything that goes on above the model. Like, how do you feed it the data? How do you launch experiments, monitor them? Like, what configurability is there for the researchers? Like, all this kind of stuff is what I'm referring to as training setup. And this might seem like a ton of, repeated effort and duplicated code, but we don't actually view this as a problem. These different setups exist for like different research goals, and like trying to push everything into like a single training setup, even just for RL, it's been tried. We don't think it works. So we're kind of happy with like lots of different setups which kind of coexist. And the reason it's not a problem, apart from that they're serving different research goals, is that we can reuse Sonnet modules between all of them. And that means, we're not like redoing the DNC from scratch. So I've talked a bunch about what we've already done with Sonnet and TensorFlow 1. Tamara is going to talk a bit about the future.
So yeah, cheers, Malcolm. So what will Sonnet look like in TF2? DeepMind are really excited for TF2 and are planning once again to invest in changing our workflow and adopting TF2. Eager execution has already been widely tried by researchers, and they really enjoy the improved flexibility, debugging, and simplicity that come from this, and are looking forward to the benefits of this being part of TF2. But one thing we've noticed is that Sonnet 1 was based on features like variable scopes quite heavily, and these are going away. This isn't something that we're worried about. We're really excited that we can follow TF into this much more natural and Pythonic world. So how do we plan on making Sonnet in this new world? So we've built TF module as the base of Sonnet 2. This is a stateful container which provides both variable and model tracking. It's been designed by engineers at DeepMind in collaboration between many individuals at DeepMind and Brain, learning lessons from both Sonnet 1 and Lua Torch. It's now been upstreamed into TensorFlow, and you can try it out in the alpha that's been released over the course of the Dev Summit. It will soon form the basis of many higher-level components in TF, including things like TF Keras. So what about modules? Modules can have multiple forward methods, addressing a limitation that we found within Sonnet 1. They can be nested arbitrarily, allowing for the creation of complex models like the neural Turing machine that was talked about earlier, and they have automatic namescoping, which allows for easy debugging. So what are we trying to do with Sonnet 2? We're aiming to create a library which makes very few assumptions about what users want to do, both with their networks and their training loops. It's been designed in close collaboration with researchers, and we think it's a lightweight, simple abstraction that's as close to the maths as it can be. So what are the features of Sonnet? Sonnet has the ability to have multiple forward methods, something enabled by TF module. But what does that really mean? There'll be an easy way to create a set of methods on an object that can all have access to the same state and variables. An example of where this is useful will be in a few slides' time. One thing that we've found that's really crucial with Sonnet 1 is that it's really easily to compose it with other systems. Sonnet 1 works out of the box with Replicator, which is our internal solution to distributed training. Even though these libraries were never designed with each other in mind, they don't even have a dependency on each other. They both just use TensorFlow under the hood. It's up to users to define how they want to compose these systems together and decide where they want to put in things like their origins to ensure that the gradients are the same across all the devices. We plan for the same philosophy to be implemented in Sonnet 2. Replicator has been merged with distribution strategy, so you'll all be able to try this out. And you can find more details on Replicator on the DeepMind blog post. So, what do we want to do within Sonnet? We also want to continue to provide the flexibility and composability that we've already heard about that they have in V1, such as things that models can be composed in arbitrary ways and that no training loop is provided. We still don't want to aim to predict where the research will go. So, what does the code look like? This is the linear layer. It's pretty much the implementation, just without some of the comments. And one thing we've been really excited by is how simple an implementation we've been able to create on top of TF module and TF2 is. Research is by nature about pushing boundaries, and we think these simple layers with minimal boilerplate will encourage forking and inheritance as a way of trying out variations. Another thing I just wanted to highlight is that modules don't necessarily have to be layers or even have state. They just inherit from TF module and get the namescoping from that. In Sonnet, we also implement optimizers of modules. They're simply nodes on a graph and benefit with the namescoping from TF module. which greatly adds to the visualization of graphs and debugging of operations later on. The forward method on optimizers isn't even called call. It's this apply update, which doesn't return anything, it just takes your gradients and your variables and applies them together. And as promised, here's the example of using multiple forward methods, making something like a variational autoencoder, where I encapsulate both an encoder and a decoder, so they can be trained together, whilst exposing both the forward methods on them both as a way for testing and using them later on. So what have we found when implementing Sonnet in TF2? We've been doing it for a while now, and we've found that we've had a much simpler, more understandable code than before. The debugging has been vastly improved and less painful with eager mode, and we have initially seen some significant speed-ups with TF function. I think this will be a hugely powerful tool going forwards. So when can you try this out? The roadmap for Sonnet 2 is on the way. It's on the way. TF modules are already available in the alpha release and TF Core. We're iterating currently on basic modules now with researchers, with the alpha release on GitHub soon, and hopefully we'll have a beta release sometime in the summer. And now over to Malcolm, who's going to talk to you about some of the projects, some of which you may have heard of, which have used and been enabled by features of Sonnet 1 that we're taking forwards into Sonnet 2.
Thanks, Tamara. So just a few samples of stuff that's been done over the past few years in Sonnet and TensorFlow 1. So this is the generative query network. So it's kind of receiving 2D rendering observations at the top. And then it's able to infer what the 3D environment looks like and put the camera in any new position. And you can see here the different probabilistic views of what the whole environment could look like. And this is a classic example of several papers worth of research, which are all modules, which then get kind of built on top of. So the original paper was draw back in the Lua torch days, and then we expanded on that with convolutional draw, and then the generative query network. AlphaStar, something quite recent, and Sonnet was really key here because there's no assumptions on the shape of what's coming in and out of each module. Both the observations and actions for the StarCraft environment are extremely complex hierarchical structures. In the action space, you need to have a kind of autoregressive model to pick whether you're going to move a unit and then where you're going to move the unit to. And the fact that Sonnet had been built with minimal assumptions about what goes in and out meant that this was actually quite easy. And another interesting aspect here is how this module, the model is actually trained. So I mean, the details are on a blog post on the DeepMind website, but the AlphaStar League is quite a complicated setup where there's lots of different agents, and they train against frozen versions of themselves from the past and try and learn to exploit them. And then you make a new agent that tries to learn to exploit all the previous ones. And this kind of custom setup is a good reason why we don't just try and stick with one training setup for everything. Because even a year ago, I don't think we could have anticipated what kind of elaborate training scheme would have been necessary to make this work. And finally, BigGAN. I suspect a lot of people are quite familiar with this, but just in case you're not, this is not a real dog, not a real photo. This is randomly generated. And I think the key aspects of Sonnet here was that the underlying GAN architecture was maybe relatively similar to things that had already been in the literature, but there was a few key components which made it really a lot better. One of them was being able to train it on an entire TPU pod, and a key aspect here was cross-replica batch norm. So the researchers involved could just say, here's a normal GAN made out of normal modules. We need to hack the batch norm, completely replace it to do kind of interesting TPU stuff, and then everything else is just kind of just works as normal. And obviously, we can't talk about BigGAN without briefly having a look at Dogball. So here's a little bit of Dogball, and then that's probably enough. So in conclusion, Sonnet is a library that's been designed in collaboration with DeepMind research scientists. We've been using it very happily for the last few years. We're looking forward to using it in the TensorFlow 2 version. It works for us, and it might work for you. Thank you very much.